Hey, what's up? My name is Jez FM and welcome back to Hypotheticals. I hope you liked the last episode where we started talking about creativity in basketball and how that affects how people play. Today we're going to be looking at our second archetype, which is the chaotic factory. Now, for those who haven't been following along, I have managed to make a way to turn a player's creativity into a statistic in the NBA. And so now what I'm doing is I'm pairing that with a propensity to get open or a technical score, and that has given us 4 archetypes. So last week we looked at the order factory, which involved Trae Young and Tim Duncan. And today I'm going to break down 2 players that other people may not think play similarly, but according to this system they do. And this is just to do with shooting and how they play on offense, not in terms of passing or dribbling, but just literally how they get their shots. And the 2 people I'm looking at today are Nikola Jokic and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, they are both chaotic factory scorers, which means they are low on creativity and high on technical skill. Now, when you think of Nikola Jokic, you may think, oh, he's someone who's very high in creativity. Well, think about how he gets his shots. Usually there's not a lot of trickery in them. They're usually a post-up, a post-fade, or just an open shot. Now, with a high technical score, it means both of them like to finish with someone near them. They have that and they tend to go to that often. That is because in Nikola Jokic's case, he's not very fast, so he's going to use his size to get in as close as he can, and then he's going to put it up. He's also got a very high release on his shot. When we look at Kareem, of course, he's got the famous skyhook, which basically requires someone to be between him and the basket, otherwise he'd just dunk it. So, let's take a little look. What is a chaotic factory? Chaotic factory scorers are few and far between. They are players that don't have a deep bag when it comes to scoring, but can somehow score quite easily using a few reliable moves. They tend to score while being heavily guarded, and may utilize other skills like passing to create a difficult assignment for other teams to deal with. Now let's take a look at the stats. So Kareem's creativity stats are 7.45 and Jokic's 6.9, so both quite low, though Kareem's is a little higher. And when we look at their technical score, Kareem is a 9.2, which is quite high, and Jokic is an 8.96, which is just fractionally above the all-time median. So that's pretty good for both of them. So let's look at these 2 players. Looking at these 2 players, it may shock you to find out that they are 2 examples of the same category. But in reality, they score with a similar mentality. Subtract the passing from Jokic's game, and you have a strong, tall player that likes to get right into the defense and use touch to finish. So does Kareem. The style is so rare because it relies on a player having a low creativity but high technical score, meaning that the defense does its job, but there's just nothing you can do. Now, I wanted to look at these 2 because I think they both are amazing examples of players at the end of games, and I think they both play very differently if you take away the scoring, but I did want to look at just the one area that they share, which is, of course, scoring. So let's have a little think. So when it comes to Nikola Jokic and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, both are great options in the final seconds of a game. And we've seen Jokic make a lot of clutch shots in his time. He's only done 6 seasons, so the fact that he's got so many highlights and already got an MVP is something that's pretty amazing. With Kareem, of course, there's a lot of clutch shots and a lot of actions. And this archetype, actually, I wanted to talk about a little bit because they're a very interesting one if you were to consider who would you give the ball to if you just needed 2 points, that's it, at the end of a game. Would you throw it to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Nikola Jokic, or would you throw it to someone like Steph Curry? For me, I think that's a tough question. I think it might even be Kareem, just such a reliable move, and the skyhook is really what puts him in the chaotic factory here, which is that he doesn't need to be creative. He can just utilize the skills that he has, and same with Jokic. They both don't need to be creative to score. Both of them have very reliable shots that they can get up, and both tended to stick to those kind of shots. So if we think of Kareem, he's not stepping out and taking threes, and he's not trying to take people off the dribble too much. He knows what his strengths are, he goes to them all the time, and that's how you become the highest scorer in NBA history. With Jokic, he understands his role. I need to post people up. I'm a big guy in terms of size. I can move people around. And if people are going to come double, I'm just going to pass it away from them. It's that easy. So both can really punish you if you make mistakes with them as well. Kareem, if the mistakes are if you're leaning one way, he can spin around you and dunk. You can even make no mistakes and both of them can still score, which is pretty cool. There's not too much to say about this archetype because the actual amount of people that are in it is incredibly low. Across all the different basketball players I looked at, Jokic and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were the only 2 that fit this mold, and Jokic only just scraped in there. it's such a rare one because to not have a deep bag and still be a very highly technical scorer is so unusual. I don't even know if it's possible for a guard to be this type. I'd have to think about it a bit more. But it would have to be someone who only finished sort of up in the trees and had almost no creativity. So you knew what was coming every time, and they still managed to finish in the tree. So I don't know if it's possible. I have to think about it a little bit more. The only person that I think could potentially fit in this, and I think it'd be worth me checking out, is Klay Thompson. So low creativity is not trying to invent a lot of different shots, but he does finish often with people very close to him. So maybe someone like Klay Thompson could fit in this category as well, which would be kind of interesting. With me, this is the ultimate type to have on your team. Someone who can give you something very easily. They don't need to mix and match too much. They know what they're going to give you. The defense knows what they're going to give them. They just can't stop them. So for me, if you can have one of these people on your team, it's worth trading a bunch of other types to get it because it's so rare. It's like a kind of perfect focal point for a clutch offense. And it's also a good way to get yourself back in the game. Flick the ball to this person and let them work their magic. And while the defense is working out how to stop them, that's when you can get other people back involved. And so that's really how this type can operate. I think it helps for Jokic that he's also got great passing. He has, looking at his passing stats, he has one of the highest. He's only behind Magic and Larry Bird in terms of passing score ever. So you've got someone who can see the floor incredibly well. Mixed with this makes him a potentially very, very, very potent offensive player. And if we think about how he could be used, if you think about comparing him to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, can you imagine if you had another great passer on this team and you could essentially operate him as a passing Kareem? I mean, I think that would be almost unstoppable because to be honest, his touch is as a passer is up there with KD's scoring. So that's sort of approximately where he sits in terms of creativity and technical. So I think it's really, really exciting, super interesting. I'd love to learn a little bit more from you about what you think about this comparison. Do you think these two are similar? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Next week, we're going to be talking about a very, very interesting one and one that's very pertinent for when I'm recording this. Next week, I'll be talking about our order artists, which are high creativity, low technical. And the two that I'm going to be looking at are Steph Curry and Larry Bird. So as always, please let me know if you have any questions. And until then, stay magical.